Hello. In this presentation we're going to talk about the Robert Sorby spiralling systems. We have the full size version and the micro version. The setup and the use of both is very similar. We will advise you of the differences when required. Okay? So what we have is a strike line down the top of the shaft. On the large one we have numbers 0 to 4 going each way. This allows us to do a left spiral and a right spiral. The micro version has little notches in the brace and a strike line, and the strike line is in line with one of the notches, either the top or the bottom of the notch. So on this occasion I have the line set up on number 1. So this means with the tool sat flat, the cutter is pitched over an angle, and that determines the direction up the way the spiral is going to go over the wood. This is number 1, so number 2 would be set like that, number 3, and so on. And that would mean number 1, number 2, number 3. So that's how it changes. All the spiral is determined by the actual cutter itself. So whichever cutter you use will determine what spiral you get. The only change that you can make is the angle at which it goes over the wood. To set up the full size one, we get the top of this base plate approximately in line with the centre of the wood. So I've got that set up like that. So with that horizontal, the top of that base plate is roughly in centre height of the wood. That means the cutter at the moment is above centre. We then set the tool rest to approximately 35 millimeters between the wood and the edge of the tool rest, which allows us our working area that we need. The micro version, top of the base plate on centre height, exactly the same, but because of the smaller cutter, instead of 35 millimeters, we normally recommend 25 millimeters. When working with the spiraling systems, you have to consider the speed of the lathe. So what I've recommended is a 50 millimeter diameter piece. You need a maximum speed of 500 RPM. So a 50 millimeter diameter piece, whether it be a box, a bowl, or a spindle length, it doesn't make any difference. But 50 millimeters, maximum speed 500 RPM for your peripheral speed setting on your lathe. The bigger the diameter, the piece of wood, the slower the speed needs to be, because you have to compensate for the peripheral speed. Okay, so just use that as a guide. So this size diameter, we'd be looking around 400 RPM. So that's what we're going to do, is adjust it down to that sort of speed. Somewhere around there, absolutely perfect. So, setup and use of this has been arranged. So we've got that on centre, we've got a gap of 35 millimeters. So what we're going to do is put this onto the tool rest, push the tool up towards the wood, and allow the front face of the cutter to start to touch the surface of the wood. As that's spinning, that's going to touch the surface, that's going to start the cutter rotating. Without any forward pressure, allow that to start to spin at a working ratio to the speed of the wood. Once it's doing that, get used to that sound, then start to lift the handle up. Continue to listen to the sound until you get to a swishing sound. That means the teeth are now cutting the surface of the wood. Hold at that position and make 1 or 2 passes. So in, allow it to touch the surface, listen to that sound, lift up the handle. There's our swishing sound. Couple of passes, take it straight out, turn it off. What we're looking for is every groove to be the same distance apart from there. That means you've got one clean cut. Now we've got that start, we're able to go back in, allow the teeth to drop back into the grooves. Now lift up again. Now we can apply a little bit of forward pressure. Working from side to side to the area that you want to create the spiral, whether it be a small area on a bowl or on a full length of spindle, it makes no difference. The reason for this tool rest here means that as you travel along, the cutter stays at the same position at all times. So if you're doing along the spindle, then the spiral will stay the same all the time. So again, we drop in, we lift up, we listen. Work from side to side. What you can also do is a slight fishtail as well as going from side to side. Because of the round cutter, this can also help create a nice clean cut. As you can see, it's just removing a small amount of material on each pass. When you feel you've finished, take it out, and there you have your spiral. Okay. Now, if you feel you need to go a little bit deeper, you can go longer. Always go back in and cut some more. It really is a personal choice as to what depth and length you have your spiral. So now we've gone down to full depth. We've got perfect tops. Okay?
Yes.
So what we're going to do now is adjust, loosen off the tool rest. And we were on one to the right, now we're going to go one to the left. So we're going to create exactly the same spiral, but the grooves are going to go in the opposite direction. Still use the same principles. Top of the base plate on center, 35mm gap. Listen for the sound. Everything is exactly the same. The cutter is just now working in the opposite direction. So again, a couple of passes. We can see we've got our grooves evenly spaced, the same as the teeth on the cutter, but going in the opposite direction. Allow it to drop back in again. And we can work away and create our spiral exactly the same as we did before. Okay, so what we can do to enhance our piece even further is we can create a pineapple effect, a checker pattern, and this is done by doing it in this way. So we've gone this direction, we're now starting in this direction. So what we can do is continue this spiral in this direction further across, so we start to cut into our original spiral. That will then begin to create our crosshatch pattern. This is the best way to be able to create this crosshatch pattern. What I advise is not to try and do it directly on top of the first one. Always start in a new position and then work across your area. Do not try and create it on top of an already worked area. So drop in, lift up, but now we're going to start to work into the already worked area.
Wow.
Okay, so now we've got that started, we can enhance that by going deeper, making that more crisp.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Really quite stunning. I've got a soft wire brush, a brass brush. This can be used to clean up any of the fibres that will have been left behind. We're using maple here, so any hardwood will work. What we can do is just highlight that by removing that material. If this was going to be the bowl, then obviously what we would be doing is removing all this material here. So we'll remove that material, and that will really enhance the look of the piece. So that's a little bit more in depth on how to use the spiraling system, how to set it up, how to use it, what the numbers are for, and how to get an even better decoration for your piece. Hope that's been interesting to you. Any questions, please ask after the end of the video. Thank you.